Native Education: A Continuing Journey by Jerry Liebarger. Alaskan Natives have traveled a long road in their journey to intermix with Western society. They have taught themselves that which was necessary, the skills to survive. They have suffered through the indignity of being stripped of their culture in an effort to fit in with the Western invasion of their territory during the times of boarding schools. They have worked with the foreign Westerners in an effort to reach common ground, and they have made commitments to current schools to better teach their children. Though the road has been long and full of trials, there has been a goal to work with the school system to best teach Alaskan Native students in a way that supports their culture and beliefs. Alaskan Natives have long been educating their youth, but in a much different way than from what civilized community found acceptable. The Native people learned from their elders. The elders of the tribe would tell stories about ways of life and other important knowledge that all youth should know. They did not sit in a classroom listening to a lecture. They would listen to their elders who were highly respected and learn through the trials and successes of their people. The elders in the tribe would tell a story about building canoes, as the youth in the tribe were carving out their own canoes. Instead of reading about nature, they would explore and discuss what was found all around them. One elder shared a story of learning to hunt while observing his father and the movements he made to attract the caribou close enough to take an easy shot with his bow and arrow. Through this education, the native youth learned one of the most important lessons they could ever need. They learned how to provide food for their family. Every day, the natives were tested, not with paper and pencil, but through surviving or dying. The native people had to use all they had learned in order to survive. If they could not find food, their family would starve. If they could not locate clean water, they would perish. If they were unable to have warm clothing and shelter for the long, cold winters, their family would freeze. These everyday struggles, struggles over life and death, were their knowledge source. As the white man began encroaching on the native lands, they set up boarding schools to assimilate Indian tribes into the mainstream of the American way of life. Run by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the goal was to teach academic basics while stripping away any native cultures the students possessed. These schools provided a very regimented schedule of learning English, mathematics, and Christianity. Everything that the native youth had known was now being changed. Those running the boarding schools believed that all traces of native heritage must be removed. This included hairstyle, clothing, names, food, and language. Practically overnight, the native children had to relearn everything they thought they knew about life. Another aspect to boarding school was the teaching of a trade. Girls and boys were split into groups and taught traditional skills as seen by the white man. Girls learned about housework while boys learned about different industries. The goal was to create self-sufficient humans that did not need to rely on others. This was a complete turnaround since Native people believed in communal living and sharing with their neighbors. As the boarding schools grew, so did the problems. Many diseases broke out since natives did not have immunity to all of the white man diseases. Villages became concerned for their children and would refuse to enroll them. In that case, rations would be withheld, or children would be forcibly removed. Parents encouraged their children to rebel, but it took over 100 years before the federal government created an act that gave Native parents a choice in their children's education, the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978. Now that Native families had a choice in educating their children, decisions had to be made about how to do so. Schools were established in Native villages, but often failed to provide a quality education. The buildings and supplies were often lacking. Teachers were underpaid and did not know how to meet the needs of the Native youth. Teachers were educated in a way that separates learning into specific subjects and does not show how they are all interconnected. On the other hand, natives learn holistically by connecting the world around them. Educators would teach science by talking about weather for one week, insects for another, plants the next week, and finally wrap it up with how plants and humans help each other. Native children experience this process in their everyday lives. It is how their families survive. Through subsistence activities, natives have learned to track the weather, watch for harmful and helpful insects, and learn the different powers of their local plants, such as food and medicine. These hands-on and interactive ways of learning do not fit easily into the Western school system. Western schools are all about data, and most data comes from standardized testing. This means students are expected to take what they have learned and put it into context during a written test. Often, especially with children who did not learn English before starting school and speak other languages at home, language becomes a huge barrier to them performing well on tests. If given the opportunity to grow a plant from seed to harvest, native children would be well adapted to the task. But ask them to read the same question in English and then put the process into English words in an answer, and their score now drops dramatically. The standardized test scores determine which ethnic group is most at risk in a Western society. Here in Alaska, students in public schools take an end-of-the-year assessment from 3rd through 10th grade. While a new test is being administered this year, past year students took the Standards-Based Assessment, or SBAs. Students are assessed in the areas of reading, writing, and math. Science is administered to 4th, 8th, and 10th grade students only. Data from these assessments is used to drive many decisions in education, such as placement of students in classrooms to provide a variety of knowledge skill sets the next school year, as well as financial resources provided by state and federal agencies. As with many reports where data is collected from multiple racial groups, each group is scored separately, highlighting the races that score the best and the worst on each test. The SBAs are no different. According to the 2013-2014 School Report Card for Alaska, the Alaskan Native and American Indian subgroup had the highest percentage of students performing far below proficiency across the entire state, while the Caucasian subgroup had the fewest percentage of students performing far below proficiency. By looking at this data, the Alaskan Natives and American Indians have the most educational needs in Alaska schools. With this knowledge, the Alaska Department of Education set goals for each racial subgroup to be proficient in reading, writing, and math. Within these goals, the Alaska Native and American Indian subgroup had the lowest target percent, while the Caucasians had the highest target percent. The only groups with a lower target are students with disabilities and students with limited English. Additionally, this report lists a 4-year graduation rate at less than half of the Alaska Native and American Indian population graduating, and they were unable to meet this goal. This means that over half of the natives and Indians are dropping out before completing high school. The statistics are scary to look at. The Alaska Native population is falling behind in our public schools, leading to dropouts and an inability to provide for themselves and their families. With those statistics in mind, plans were made to make changes in an effort to better support Alaska Native students. The Title VII Indian Education Program is designed to support students, families, and school staff to provide quality education for Alaska Native students here in the Anchorage School District. The Native Advisory Committee, or NAC, is composed of Alaska Native parents, older students, and teachers. Their purpose is to provide support and ideas to the Indian education program. Another part of the program is a development tutor who can be found in schools across the district that educate a large population of Alaska Native or American Indian students. The tutor's job is to provide additional assistance to students within the classroom as well as outside the classroom when needed. Additionally, they can provide counseling and cultural links to students to help them manage the two worlds in which they live. Not only does the program provide in-school tutors for students, they also provide many out-of-school opportunities for students to connect to their native cultures. One example is a summer camp in which students learn how to perform native tasks such as caribou skin tanning, cultural enrichment activities, art, dance, Alaska Native language instruction, PE, technology, math, science, and more. Project Kala is an after-school club where Alaska Native and American Indian boys meet with adult leaders and learn about Native heritage and traditions. The goal of the program is to improve test scores and lower dropout rates by providing exciting activities to make learning academics and culture more interesting. Alaska Natives have traveled a long road in their journey to fit in with the Western world's expectations of how people should be taught. As teachers become more educated in the different learning styles of Alaska Natives, so too should the Alaska Natives become more educated in academics. The development of Title VII is a step to create better education for Alaska Natives. This program is helping to close the gap between Alaska Natives and other races. Through the continued effort of families, school staff, and caring community members, Alaska Native students have a tremendous support system to encourage and cheer on their success in school and in life.